Hi, my name's Kelly Tallaksen. I am the owner of Hearts in Harmony Hypnosis. I am a board certified hypnosis instructor and practitioner, certified by the National Guild of Hypnotists. I do what's called transpersonal work, which means I'm working with the mind, the body, and the spirit. I've been working with clients for a long time, digging into their unconscious minds. And what I've learned from my work and from my own life experiences is I think we need to go deeper inside ourselves before we enter into a very deep commitment with another person and start a family. So, the 5 things I would like to share about what I wish I knew before I got married and started a family are: one, that coming into a marriage, a union, a partnership, and starting a family, it's important to know who you are on a deep soul level. And what I mean by that is to tap into your soul and to get into the parts of you that may be harboring some kind of past trauma, maybe usually from childhood. What happens is, as children, when we don't get our needs met, we look to get those needs met outside of the family when we get older. And we're not that child anymore, but there's a child consciousness that lives within us that is still trying to get our needs met. So we basically turn to our adult relationships. And when we join union with someone and we get very intimately close with them, we start to believe on a deep level, the child in us, that we are now getting our needs met. When that person doesn't meet our childhood needs that our parents or other caregivers couldn't meet for us, we tend to react in a childlike way when they're not able to meet those needs. Now, we don't know what those needs are because this is all suppressed energy. This is all in the unconscious. They don't know what those needs are, nor are they responsible to meet our needs. However, not knowing that we're coming into this with unhealed stuff from the past, we're basically looking outside of ourselves like we did as a child for that validation, for that love, for that security. When you first meet someone, you may feel all those feelings because they're showing up for you. You feel significant, you feel heard, you feel seen, you feel loved, you feel like you belong in that relationship. And that is such a beautiful, powerful feeling because that's what your childhood self needed. If your childhood self did not receive it, and somebody comes along in your adult life and brings you all of this, it basically feels like you hit the jackpot. And then what happens is now you get really close. Maybe you live together, maybe you get married, and now suddenly they start to get comfortable with you and they don't really go out of their way to impress you anymore. They don't show up like they used to. What happens is the child part in you starts to react like a child. You start to get angry, defensive. You may shut down, you may run from them, or you may accuse them of not loving you. And that's not really coming from your adult self. It's coming from that insecure child because that insecure child really thought that they finally were getting their needs met. So it's almost like I didn't get my needs met as a child. You brought it to me when we first met. Now you're taking it away, and it's going to cause reactive behavior. That reactive behavior causes your spouse to be confused or your partner to be like, why are you acting like this? And then you don't understand why they don't understand. And that's where tension starts to build in that union. So it's very important to do your inner work before you decide to share your life so intimately with someone else, because you want to come in feeling whole. And even though you think you feel whole, you might actually feel broken on the inside. I never say we're broken. I believe we're always beautiful, divine beings and always whole. But we get that feeling of brokenness and we bring that feeling into this intimacy. And what's going to happen is it's going to cause some kind of confusion, Sometimes it causes chaos. It could cause a lot of tension, a lot of defensiveness, and it could cause a lot of miscommunication or no communication at all, a lot of shutdown. The second thing I wish I knew before I got married and started a family was I'm not the only one coming into this union with unhealed pain. Chances are my spouse is as well. Because usually what happens is on an unconscious level, we're drawn to people that are very much like ourselves. Now, we may meet them and say, oh, this is everything I always wanted, because yes, at the beginning, there's so much lust and so much curiosity until we really get to know them. And even when we get to know them, we don't even allow ourselves to see the red flags because we want so much to connect with them. So we don't want to look at those red flags, but they're there. And you may notice in their actions that they're actually triggering you. And you hold back because you don't want to get triggered, right? Or you do get triggered and you don't show up to them about it. You just kind of keep it to yourself. But that can only snowball down the road. So chances are, if you're coming in with some unhealed trauma, so is your partner. And you're drawn together unconsciously because you're looking to get your childhood needs met. So are they. They don't realize it. It's unconscious. But you came into the union giving them the attention they've always wanted, showing up for them, hearing them, seeing them, showing them they're significant and making them feel safe and like they belong. So then what happens is you join together, you get really intimate with each other, you move in together, you become a union. And what happens is now you start to pull back a little bit because you start to say, okay, that was fun, really enjoyed the honeymoon effect, but now I got to get back to real life. And they start to get triggered. So they can trigger you, you could trigger them. So the idea is to understand that when you heal inside yourself, when you do that before you come into a union with another, you will see those red flags and you can resolve what needs to be resolved before you actually get so intimate with each other that it becomes a codependency, because you're looking to get your needs met from them. They're looking to get their needs met from you. It doesn't mean that these unions need to fall apart. It just needs that most likely both of you need to do some inner work before you actually start bringing your lives together on such a deep, intimate level. And that's something you have to do on your own, because you don't want to look to the other person to do the healing work for you. You want to do the healing work and let them support you through your healing is also very possible. But what you don't want to do is come into it unhealed, draw somebody toward you who is also unhealed, because it's going to cause a lot of tension. The third thing I wish I knew before I got married and started a family was that our children that we bring into this union and grow it even bigger now and start the family dynamics is that a lot of times when we come in unhealed, we draw in a spouse toward us that's also unhealed. But yet we're very kind, loving, good parents. We have very good intentions. What happens is we don't realize that we actually try to heal our inner childhood pain, not only through our spouse, but also through our children. So for example, if I grew up not receiving affection from my mother or my father, so it felt like a very distant type of growing up. There wasn't a lot of intimacy. So I may fear that intimacy with my own child. So when they come to me, because it's a natural thing to seek intimacy, affection from a parent, okay, you may actually feel so deficient in it that you don't know how to handle it. So you may think you're coming forward with all that intimacy and affection, but they feel your energy and they can tell that you're not coming in 100%. And then they start to feel deficient in it. Sometimes the opposite happens where you're actually trying to heal your inner child. So you come in and you overindulge in the affection. So when you start giving too much affection, you basically suffocate them and you don't let them have their individuality because you're constantly worried, am I giving you enough? because you feel so deficient that you want to make sure your child has all that they need because you know how it felt. So either you're pulling back because you think that it's not the right thing to do, or you're overindulging. But either way, it's unhealthy because it's not coming in with full intentional love. It's coming in from some kind of unconscious fears, things that you're trying to satisfy in yourself through your child. And it's not fair to the child. And it's certainly not right for you to do that to yourself. You need to take that time to say, what do I need? What do I need to heal so I could show up for my children in that wholeness and not have this unconscious feeling of brokenness, because the children can feel that. So you may come in and give them a big hug and say, I love you, I love you, I love you, and really, really mean it. But a part of you holds back because it's so unfamiliar to you, or you're overdoing it and you don't give them the space that they need to grow and evolve. So it can only backfire if you don't do your internal work. The fourth thing I would like to share about what I wish I knew before I got married and started a family is that generational trauma is real. I know I've read about it, I know I've heard about it, but I could not really wrap my head around it, that we can actually feel the memories and the pain and the energetic frequencies of our ancestors. And then when I started looking more into it and I saw some studies on it, and I started doing the work on ancestral healing with my clients, I became a believer. I now understand that we can energetically pull in from our ancestry because it passes down the line. It's generational trauma, it's ancestral trauma, is the fear consciousness that's coming from our parents, that they got from their parents and they got from their parents, doesn't automatically dissolve. It gets healed and transforms with love. But since the fear is so powerful, moving down that ancestral line, sometimes even though we bring in a lot of love, we still have those remnants of fear, which means, again, we need to get into that healing work so we could show up 100% for our spouse, for our children, for ourselves. So yes, generational trauma is real. It affects the family dynamics because you're bringing in unresolved trauma that has been passed down to you from your ancestors. And how it affects you is because they're not showing up for you because somebody didn't show up for your parents, and then somebody didn't show up for their parents. And it's usually parental or the primary caregivers, because by nature, we come into the world and we're seeking safety, love, validation. We need to know we're valuable. We need to know we belong, because that's what's going to make us feel safe in this world. If we're not getting those needs met, we could come in with a feeling of survival consciousness, which is something our ancestors hold on to so deeply, is that survival consciousness, because they did live through some pretty deep traumas like depressions and wars. And what happens is that fear does pass on to the child, and it could pass on in the womb. And then it could pass on from that child as they become an adult. They could pass it on to their children because they're still holding on to the fear that was passed down to them. So it's very important to understand you could be harboring generational trauma, and it's very important always to go inside yourself, do the deep inner work, which is known as shadow work, or the great work, the deep inner work. And it's not just about sitting in meditation and just saying, okay, I'm at peace, because there's parts of you that are unconscious that don't feel like they're at peace. So it's about getting into that unconscious part of you. And it's not so easy to do, but there are practitioners out there that can help you do that, or there are certain meditations you can go into that help you really contact those parts of you that you basically shut down a long time ago. And the last thing, the fifth thing I would like to share about what I wish I knew before I got married and I started a family is that we are energetic beings. We are emitting a certain energy, a certain vibrational frequency. That frequency draws in toward us like frequency, because like attracts like. It's like magnetic. So if you're in a low vibration because you're carrying sadness, or you're carrying resentment, or you're still carrying grief from the loss of a loved one, and you having come to a place of acceptance and healing and integrated all of those rejected parts of yourself that you couldn't deal with because you couldn't process the emotions, then you're coming in feeling less than whole, which means you will draw towards you people, friendships, spouses, partners that feel less than whole. And again, that's going to cause tension in the union. And then what happens is your children come into that union very sensitive energy because they're not familiar with this great big physical world. They're really grabbing onto your energy. So if your energy is standoffish because you hold on to fear, or if you're too erratic, right? Too stressed, too overwhelmed, that's erratic energy, they feel it. And it affects their nervous system, because whatever you're carrying energetically, you're bringing it around the people you're closest with. And if they're sensitive souls like children are, they just suck that energy right up, and it does affect them. It could affect them on every level of their being because they're trying to interpret your energy, because they don't have the words. They don't have cognitive abilities to figure it out. They cannot process what they're feeling. So they go by what they're feeling energetically. So it's very important to come into a union energetically balanced, to ensure that your partner is energetically balanced, which is most likely, if you're coming into it, you're drawing towards you that same like vibration. And that's what you want to share with the children, that when you start a family with this person, this partner that you decide to join union with, you want to bring in high vibrational energy so that these children can grow up without feeling like there's something going on with them, which makes them think something's wrong with them. Their energy is off. They're feeling fear because they're picking up on your energy. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I want to thank you for joining me. And I hope this was helpful. And I look forward to bringing more of this information to you. And if you need to reach me, my website is Hearts in Harmony Hypnosis. And I am in Nassau County, New York, USA. Thank you again. Many blessings to you.